Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a really tough but critical topic, violence within the family. We're talking about child, partner, and elder abuse.
And it's something that, our source material makes very clear, crosses every single line, ethnic, religious, socioeconomic. It's everywhere.
So our mission today is to really unpack the indicators, the ones you don't see, and what's really driving this.
Right, because when people hear abuse, they think of physical violence. But the sources lay out four really broad categories.
Okay, whatever.
Emotional, physical, sexual, and the big one often gets missed, neglect.
Neglect.
Yeah, the inconsistent provision of basic needs. And get this, neglect actually makes up a staggering 59% of all documented child abuse cases.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack that. The indicators go way beyond a black eye, right?
Yeah,
The sources talk about chronic stress as a huge flag.
a massive one. We're talking about victims showing up in the ER again and again with injuries they blame on being accident-prone. But it's also what's happening internally. The trauma manifests as panic attacks, hypertension, insomnia, even physical things you wouldn't connect, like eczema or hair loss.
So it's a constant state of fear.
It points to a controlling environment. And that brings us to the biggest myth out there.
The idea that the abuser just lost control, that they just snapped.
Exactly. And the evidence just completely refutes that. It's not a loss of control, it's an exercise of it.
How so?
Well, think about it. Perpetrators demonstrate intention. They choose when and where to be abusive, often when no one's around or where marks won't show.
Right.
And critically, these same people who lose control at home don't seem to lose it with their boss or with a police officer, no matter how angry they get.
So it's a choice.
Yeah.
And that connects right into this idea of violence as a learned behavior, social learning theory.
Precisely. It's an intergenerational pattern. And for partners, there's a classic model for this, Walker's cycle of violence.
Okay, what does that look like?
It has three phases. First is tension building. The victim feels like they're constantly walking on eggshells.
Okay, a lot of low-level anxiety.
Then comes the second phase, the acute battering incident, the major explosion.
And then the part that's so psychologically damaging, the honeymoon phase.
Yes. The abuser becomes loving, contrite, brings gifts, and this is the hook. It gives the victim hope that things will change, that the person they love is back for good.
And that's what keeps them in the cycle.
It's an incredibly powerful trap, and it's so prevalent. Intimate partner violence is the #1 reason women visit the emergency department.
Let's shift to vulnerability. Who is most at risk?
For children, the sources are clear. Kids younger than 4, and especially infants under 1 year old, they're the most defenseless.
And what about for elders?
It's often patients over 80, and the underreporting is shocking. We're talking 70 to 80% of incidents are never reported.
Never reported. Wow.
And the abuser profile is interesting. It's often a middle-aged child who is financially dependent on that older parent and is under a lot of stress themselves.
This is all so complex, but the data gives a really stark warning for anyone trying to help. What is the single most dangerous time in an abusive relationship?
It's what the sources call risk intensification. It's the period when a victim is attempting to leave or right after they've left.
That seems so counterintuitive.
It is, but the statistics are chilling. Attempting to leave the abuser was the precipitating factor in 45% of murders of women by their intimate partner.
45%. So a safety plan isn't just a good idea, it's life or death.
It is absolutely essential. Packing a bag with documents, having a code word. But there's a surprising piece of advice on giving out resources.
Ooh.
Professionals are often trained to only give verbal resources. No printed brochures or cards.
Why is that?
Because if the abuser finds a pamphlet for a shelter, it can trigger an escalation. It basically acts as a roadmap to the victim's escape plan, putting them in more danger.
So to wrap this up, the issue is deeply cyclical and tied to these really profound power dynamics.
It is, and for anyone supporting a victim of partner violence, the key is non-judgmental support. Ultimately, the decision to stay or go has to be theirs.
And that leaves us with one final thought to mull over.
Yeah. And it's about our legal system. We have mandatory reporting laws for suspected child abuse. Everyone knows that.
Right.
But the laws for protecting adults are a total patchwork. For an elder to be protected from, say, financial exploitation by their own family, they often have to be proven to be cognitively impaired first. So here's the question for you to think about. Shouldn't we have standardized protection for all vulnerable people, regardless of their mental capacity?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a profoundly important and frankly, difficult topic,
Mm-hmm.
sexual violence, or SV.
Mm-hmm.
We've synthesized a lot of material from medical, legal, and social research to give you the clearest possible perspective.
Right.
Our mission here is to really, quickly and respectfully distill all of this so you walk away with the most critical knowledge.
And to start, I think we have to be absolutely clear on the core definition. Our sources define sexual assault, first and foremost, as an act of violence, power, and hate.
Not about desire.
Not at all. It's committed to demonstrate dominance. And the consequences are just devastating. We're talking massive increases in severe depression, high suicide risk, and serious physical health issues, too.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. The CDC categories, for instance, show that the definition of SV is actually much broader than what many people might think. Why is it so expansive?
Well, it's because the definitions have had to evolve to account for control and coercion. I mean, it's not just about completed or attempted physical force.
So it's not just a physical act.
Exactly. The definition crucially includes non-physically forced penetration that's achieved through, say, sustained verbal pressure or intimidation, or someone misusing their authority. That sits right alongside unwanted sexual contact and even non-contact experiences.
That expansion, acknowledging abuse of power is just as violating as physical force, that makes complete sense. But this leads to a really critical and deeply frustrating finding. Underreporting.
Absolutely. The statistics we have are really just approximations. Rape and child molestation are consistently cited as among the most underreported crimes in the world.
How underreported are we talking?
Some of our sources estimate that as few as maybe 1 to 10% of these crimes are ever formally disclosed.
1 to 10%. Wow. Okay, let's spend a moment on the prevalence then, because the numbers for vulnerable populations they're just shocking. Let's start with young people.
The highest rate of sexual violence is actually experienced by those aged 16 to 19.
16 to 19.
Yeah. And if we narrow in on, say, college women, the numbers are stark. Between 20 and 25% experience an attempted or completed rape during college.
And the sources also pointed out something about who the attacker is in these situations.
Yes, and this is so key. For those college women, up to 90% of them know their attacker. It's often in the context of what we call date rape.
So it's not a stranger in an alley.
Rarely. And if we look at children, the data is just as disturbing. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are sexually molested by the age of 18.
Unbelievable.
And that statistic about knowing the attacker. For children, approximately 75% of molestation is perpetrated by family members. The threat is overwhelmingly domestic.
That idea that the threat so often comes from inside the home is immense. Okay, let's shift a little to the role of substances. We hear a lot in the media about specific date rape drugs.
We do, and we are seeing an increase in cases that involve things like GHB, Rohypnol, the quote-unquote forget drug, and ketamine.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the data is crystal clear. The most common drug used to facilitate the crime of rape, by a huge margin, is still just alcohol.
So with all of this trauma, what does that mean for a survivor? The psychological toll sounds specific and devastating.
It is. Every single individual suffers severe, deep emotional scars. The primary diagnosis here is rape trauma syndrome, which is actually categorized as a variant of PTSD.
Okay, a type of PTSD.
Exactly. It's characterized by these intense re-experiences of the trauma, avoidance behaviors, and a social withdrawal that can just severely impact their ability to function day to day.
So given that level of specialized trauma, what kind of specialized support exists to bridge that gap between, treatment and actual justice?
This is where we need to talk about sexual assault nurse examiners, or SANs.
SANs, okay.
These are forensic nurses. They're specifically trained for these cases, and they have a dual function. They provide vital medical care like emergency contraception, STD treatment, while also meticulously collecting evidence.
Ah, so they handle the rape kits we hear about.
Precisely. They ensure the chain of custody is perfect for legal proceedings, and they can even provide expert testimony in court.
And the documentation must be incredibly important there.
It's everything. The forensic documentation has to be meticulous, and it's fascinating. Nurses and law enforcement are trained to use very specific language, like reported instead of alleged, when they're detailing what the survivor has told them.
This deep dive really reveals the immense and often invisible scope of sexual violence, and it highlights just how specialized the response has to be from everyone involved.
It does. And maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. The sources indicate most rapists don't acknowledge any need for change. and no single treatment program has been found to be totally effective for perpetrators. So with that in mind, how does the focus on meticulous legal and clinical support for survivors become the single most crucial pathway toward both recovery and justice?